Bases in No Man's Sky come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Some are vast cities or outposts, some are floating cities soaring in the skies above planets, some are recreations of famous landmarks and fictional locations, and some are incredible sculptures leaving you mind blown with no clue as to how they were built in the first place. I've done many showcase videos on all of these, and I've also created beginner guides on most types of bases over the years, but one thing I have never done is create an underwater base building guide for No Man's Sky. So that is exactly what I've done in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get stuck in. I suppose the first question on a lot of people's minds is, why should I build an underwater base? Well, so you can be the overlord of your own Atlantis or Rapture, of course. Duh. I joke, but a lot of players will build bases underwater to have quick access to some of the valuable resources down there, like living pearls, crystallized sulfur, hadal cores, and so on. But on the whole, base building underwater I find can be more fun as they can have certain uniqueness to them not found on surface bases. And you can even go hybrid and have a base which consists of both underwater and on-surface aspects of it if you so desired. A bit like my base I'm going to do in this video. Anyway, enough of that, moving on. The first thing you're going to need, which is pretty obvious, is a planet with a good amount of water on it to actually build said underwater base. Obviously. But how do you know how to find a planet with oceans and other large bodies of water which are actually deep? Well, sadly, there isn't a fully tried and tested method of doing just that, so in this case, if you don't want to go out and spend ages exploring for one yourself, I found a paradise planet with oceans on it just for you guys for this video. This paradise planet is in Euclid, and if you want to come and build your own underwater base here, we can set up an amazing planet with a shed load of player bases to visit. The portal coordinates you want are Boat, Sunset, Eclipse, Sunset, Atlas, Rocket, Galaxy, Bug, Balloon, Sunset, Face, and finally a fish, so come and get yourself over here and start building underwater. In terms of blueprints for underwater bases, there are specific ones you can unlock because we can't exactly build wooden rooms under there as they won't be watertight. The good news is, as I said, there are a bunch you can unlock very easily, and there are a couple of ways of doing this. My preferred method is always just to gather a load of buried technology components and then head on up to the anomaly and unlock all of the specific underwater blueprints there. But if you prefer, you can follow the Dreams of the Deep questline and you'll be rewarded with the same blueprints without spending buried technology components on them. The downside is it will take you a lot longer to acquire the blueprints that way, hence why I just buy them directly from the anomaly to save me a lot of time. Having the blueprints for these underwater base components is one thing, but you will of course need to stock up on resource before you start building, otherwise you'll be building a tiny bit and then spend the rest of the time hunting out these resources, and that's just no fun. Pretty much every underwater base component needs glass, so you want to stock up on plenty of glass, and this is very easily done by using your terrain manipulator. Go to any planet's surface, use your terrain manipulator on the ground and gather a bunch of silicate powder. Then once you've got loads of that, lob it into a refiner to create glass. Simples. A lot of the aquatic specific base components, in fact probably most of them, if not all of them, will require less common resources to build them, so things like crystal sulfide and living pearls. So if you plan on using these aquatic components, make sure you're scavenging the depths of the ocean for these before you start building. They are reasonably common on the planet that I've given you coordinates for, so go ahead and dive underwater. The good news, however, is you don't really have to use these aquatic specific blueprints if you don't want to, and you can instead use other base components which are built using more common resources. So we're talking things like pure ferrite, which, if you've gathered enough regular ferrite dust, can be stocked up in abundance by just using a refiner. So some of these base components can be used underwater and on land, but they're not specifically aquatic base components. So things like the large circular and square rooms, biodomes, square corridors with glass on the side. These use a lot more pure ferrite than the likes of less common resources like crystal sulfide and the underwater resources to be built. So by this point, you've unlocked your blueprints, you've stocked up on resources, and let's assume you've found a planet with oceans to build your base on. Before you decide on a specific location, you probably want to check for electromagnetic hotspots to get unlimited power for that base. I won't go into detail about this, but basically you want to install the survey device onto your scanner and then set it to search for electromagnetic hotspots. You should find one in a reasonably short time, and the higher the class of the hotspot, the more power you'll be able to generate. So if you're thinking of building a giant underwater base which requires a lot of power, it may be worth you spending some time to look for an A or an S class hotspot. But for most bases, any electromagnetic hotspot will do the job just fine. Alternatively, if you prefer not to search for a hotspot, solar panels and batteries will also supply power to your underwater base, even if they are placed underwater. How and why that works is anyone's guess, but if you prefer, you could just stick a foundation for them on top of the water's surface like I have done for the purpose of this video. Stick your solar panels and batteries on there and then run a power line underwater to the remainder of your base. It really is up to you which option you choose for powering everything. You just need to make sure that you've built enough of them to power your base, because most rooms underwater require powering, so you will need a fairly large power grid for your base if it's a decent size, say more than a couple of rooms or biodomes. On to actually building the base. So you want to find a decent spot underwater which is deep enough to actually make it a multi-level underwater base if you so desired. I've managed to find a decent area which was around about 50U deep, but it isn't that much, but it does a job just fine for the base I'm going to make for this video. So find yourself a good spot, whether that be near an island, in the middle of nowhere, or near that electromagnetic hotspot, and then place a base computer down and you're good to get starting on that build. One of the first tasks I did was trying to create a landing pad near your base. And if you've placed your base computer in the middle of nowhere, and nowhere near any islands, that could be a tad tricky. But let me talk about how you can solve that issue of landing pads on the water. But as I said, there are two options of getting landing pads within the base boundaries. Option one is if you're on a spot near an island, place it there, or if not, you'll want to get a landing pad or two floating on top of the water, which is what I did for this video. Now let me show you how to do it. So to get that landing pad on top of the water, you will actually need to start building your base underwater first. So place any number of base components together to your liking and your designs to get yourself started. It's also worth putting either a moon pool or a watertight door on one of your rooms so you can actually step into your base as you're in the process of building it, so you don't run out of oxygen. They can then be removed later on if you wish. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. To get a landing pad onto the surface, you're going to need to build your base up to the surface or as close to the surface as you can using either vertical glass tunnels or by stacking rooms on top of one another. And once you've just about reached the surface of the ocean, you should then be able to place a landing pad on top of those components. So go ahead and do that, and then remove the base components you used to get to the surface in the first place. Then you've got a floating landing pad. See, it's not really that complicated at all, is it? The rest of the underwater structure is totally up to you to design and build, so go crazy. As for me, I just created a multi-level underwater base which is pretty symmetrical, and I've used a combination of square rooms, circle rooms, biodomes, square tunnels and vertical tunnels with ladders in to connect both levels. So I've not really used too many of the aquatic specific base building components to get my base connected up and built. And once you've got that underwater structure done, the next thing is powering your underwater base. And I decided, mainly because my dumbass prioritised looking for a deep section of ocean instead of a hotspot, to use solar panels and batteries. I kept all of mine above ground and just built an area of alloy flooring off where my landing pads were, and then connected everything together to make my very own power grid. And obviously when you connect everything together, it looks a bit of a chuff, so don't forget to use the wire cloaking device to hide all of those wires, otherwise, as I said, the base will look a bit shit. The good news is you can place a wire cloaking device upside down underneath the alloy flooring, which hides it very well. And in terms of actually connecting this power grid to your base, you actually only need to connect it to one room of your underwater base, providing everything down there is connected. Then your entire base will be powered. And again, assuming you've built a large enough power grid for your base, of course. If nothing starts getting powered, just build more solar panels or electromagnetic generators and batteries. The final thing is no one wants to have to swim down to their underwater base each time when they visit it, do they? So for a quick and easy access to it, all you need to build is a short range teleporter both on the surface somewhere and in your underwater base, and then hook them up. I just built a room on top and stuck it in there. It really is simple to hook them together, so make sure you do that as well, obviously. As for the rest of building your base, so I'm talking about things like decorating and furnishing, you don't need me to tell you how to do that. You just go crazy with whatever you want to do in there. The main purpose of this video was for showing how to actually build an underwater base and the main things that are involved in doing it, and now you should know that. I have actually uploaded the base I've been working on for this video, and I've aptly named it Bunkslantis, obviously. It's not fully finished yet, and I need to add stuff like furniture, more crops to be found in biodomes, and a bunch of other stuff. But rest assured, I will definitely be updating it and re-uploading it so you guys can check it out as well. Now, if you've been watching this video and you've convinced yourself to make your very own underwater metropolis, awesome. One thing that would make it even better would be if you guys decide to create that underwater base and you haven't decided to build it on the planet I've given you coordinates for, why don't you leave a comment below giving us the portal coordinates and the galaxy your base is in, so myself and other viewers can check them out. You never know, some of these bases may feature in one of my future base showcase videos. And if you decided to build an underwater base on the planet I give coordinates for in a video, even better. Thank you for visiting and building there. I will certainly be checking out every new base that appears. Well, there you have it, folks. There is absolutely everything you need to know when building an underwater base in No Man's Sky. Watch Hello Games release an underwater base update in the coming months, meaning I have to redo this video. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful, and if you're still here, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by clicking those like and subscribe buttons. You can now also become a channel member as well, and as always, thank you for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.